And if a farm goes from, I see it, I've seen it, I can show you comparable sales where when the zoning went in Howell, in Manalapan, in Hillsborough, where the values came down, and people involved in agriculture lost a good chunk of the financial statement. Additionally, at Farm Credit and other lending institutions, we will approve a loan with an interest rate based on your equity position. Basically, if you're in 75 or 80% equity position, you get one rate. What's the interest expense? Interest expense is what me, the banker, gets paid for taking risk. Okay. Now, if I'm dealing with someone that's got a 40% equity position, there's more inherent risk here. Is there not? Very simple math. So, as a lender and as a cooperative lending institution, which Farm Credit is, we've got to protect our stockholders and make good loans and get compensated for any risk that we might take. So that's really what interest rate is all about. Okay, someone that's got a 90% equity position, don't you feel should be getting the same rate that someone that's got a 22% equity position? That's not the way we look at it. So what we look at is the balance sheets, okay, current position of the balance sheet. Now there's, additionally, when you look at capitalization, intermediate assets, and there's people in this room that can attest to that. Once you purchase a piece of equipment, in most cases, the value comes down tremendously today. Because basically, it's economics, it's supply and demand, okay? And it's just a challenge for that individual entity to recoup that equity from that piece of equipment. So what does he or she rely on? They rely on the land that they have, okay? That's what we see. That the land that they have is their 401k, okay? I don't have a farm. I have a 401k after 38 years, okay? That's my equity position to get me what I need to do to be successful and continue with my family as though people involved in agriculture have to do that. So what I've seen is the value of the land reduces dramatically. Dramatically. It's not an opinion. We can all research, we all got computers, we can all research it and see what's happened in other communities, townships, where the value of the land has decreased because of downside. It's just a fact. It's not my opinion. My opinion is not really that valuable. It's what I've seen in comparable sales. It's very simple. That if you've got a 10-acre parcel, me as a lender looking at it, and if it goes to 25 acres, gee, we can only, that's one lot. Okay, as opposed to what else can we do with it if it's 10 acres? Now, the planning commission, the planning board, has done some outstanding job in the 63 years that I've been here. Outstanding job of curbing development, working with the people involved in agriculture, and working with some people in development also. As you drive through the township, right? Believe me, I know every street in this township, inside out. I was telling Dave on the way in here, I've probably been in this township no longer than Mr. Bond's been here longer, and I'm probably the second person that's been in this township myself for 63 years. I don't think there's any people here longer than me. So I've seen it happen. The township committee, the planning board, my brother Joe was on the board of adjustment back in the 80s and 90s, has done a phenomenal job in maintaining a balance between development and agriculture. Okay, but the people involved in agriculture, not just in this township, but in every county, every state, every township and county I deal with in New Jersey, from Cumberland all the way to Sussex County, okay? That's their livelihood, majority. It's their livelihood. Okay, so I've seen from Wabash Township near High Point to Cape May County, the values have been reduced, which in essence reduces their equity position when myself as a lender looks at their financial statement. Okay, and I will be honest with you, we do, like I mentioned a few minutes earlier, we do look at repayment capacity, but it's only one part of a decision making as a lending institution. Okay, we look at the equity position, we look at collateral, we look at how we can secure it. We want to find ways to give the individual agriculture. That's the only thing I can do is farm loans. Can't do loans for commercial building. My loans are strictly for people involved in agriculture. You have to own an agricultural asset. I'm sorry if I didn't explain what farm credit does. Okay, 102-year-old cooperative lending institution, and we only can lend to someone that's got agricultural assets. That's all. But we do lend to people that have, there could be part-time farmers, but they own an asset, they have a full-time job. Well, we have a lot of people that have their primary vocation is agriculture. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that I've seen in my almost 40 years of being in this business how downzoning has affected the balance sheet. And I would be willing to go to task with anyone in the state, from the Secretary of Agriculture to the farmer in Cape May, that it doesn't affect the value of the property. And that's really what I wanted to come in and just speak to the committee, and with my years of experience and seeing what I've seen, not just here, but all over the state, in New Jersey. I mean, I hope I explained myself to where you guys feel comfortable, ladies feel comfortable. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I'd like to just go to my planning board first, and then we're going to open to the public. So if you have questions, you can ask questions, and we'll have a public discussion. But I want to go to my planning board members first. Does anybody have questions that they'd like to ask?
I guess dealing with numbers. So if what you're saying is, let's just make an example. Easy. The value, if you have 100 acres, it's worth $1 million. And it's at 10 acres up. So what you're saying is, if you go to 25 acres, that 10,000 an acre or 1,000 and whatever, 10,000 an acre will go down to 5,000.
Possibly, depending on comparable sales, possibly, yes. Very well could be, yes. And what that also does, John, when you're looking at the downward cycle or valuation of that particular asset, it removes any room for adversity the agricultural enterprise has. Because all these years, when a farmer has a season where there might be some sort of a disaster, when I started in 1980, it was a drought in this area. Corn and soybeans didn't virtually yielded absolutely nothing. Emergency loans all over this area. And we had to take loans and go over a 10 or 15-year period because we just couldn't sell them out after one bad year. We couldn't control the weather. The farmers couldn't control the weather. So what did? We took their equity and maybe took a 150, $200,000 or $300,000 loss and stretched it out over a 15-year period because they had that equity to help them continue in business, not put them out of business. I hope it makes any sense, John, I hope.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else up here?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Angela?
I didn't quite understand his answer. So we have the 1 million, the 100-acre farm at $1 million. Okay, that's $10,000 an acre. At 25-acre zoning, what would the value be per acre?
It would come down. Well, it depends on, like I said to John, it'd be based on comparable sales. I can't give you a valuation.
Approximate 10%, 20%,
Probably 20, at least 20%, maybe even more. I'd have to look at comparable sales to determine what the value would be to a similar property in a similar area based on location, size, and all that other stuff. And do the market value, the income approach, and the cost approach, the three valuations in the appraisal process. Not just their market value. Does that make any sense what I'm trying to say? Or?
Yeah.
I'm here to help everybody understand what I'm trying to say.
I was just looking for numbers.
Yeah, well, I know what you're looking for numbers. If I knew the number would be, I wouldn't be lending money, I'd be doing something else. I'm forecasting the future, making 10 times what I'm making right now.
Does anybody on Zoom have a question? Marnie?
This may be what you've already answered, but I'm just trying to understand, is there any way to quantify the kind of loss in equity that you're describing?
It would like I mentioned, it'd be very challenging because we would have to look at comparable sales. I will tell you though, historically, I've seen a reduction in value and it has not been minimal.
But no one's it's not, we can't look at any document or anything.
But it hasn't been minimal. It hasn't been minimal at all. And I'm more concerned, my concern is keeping the individual entity, the agricultural entity alive. Okay, so
Well, I think that's everyone's concern, right?
it's also reducing the room for adversity if he or she or an entity has some sort of bad year. It just doesn't reduce the value on your financial statement. It reduces room for adversity as an ongoing operation. Does that make any sense what I'm trying to say?
Did you get that, Marnie?
Yeah, it's hard to understand in the abstract, without actual numbers, but yes, I understand what he's saying.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the planning board on Zoom? Pam?
Yeah, can you just explain what the process is when a farmer asks for a loan? Do they actually, I assume there's forms to be filled out, but is there an appraisal done of their property every single time they need a loan?
In most cases, what happens when an applicant contacts me, he or she, the entity, has now to give me 3 years of federal income tax returns, all detailed, a personal and business financial statement with verifications of all assets and liabilities. Depending on the purpose and the structure, if there's a long-term loan which is in over 10 years, we would require a real estate appraisal. Of course, a lending institution has got to put a value on the real estate they're taking as collateral, and or if that individual entity is applying for a machinery equipment loan, yes, any asset a lender takes requires an appraisal, which is an opinion of value by a certified appraiser. Years ago, I could have done it. Today, as an officer, I'm not permitted to. The applicant must pay for a certified appraiser's opinion of value of the specific asset that we are taking as collateral at the lending institution.
Okay, and then it's the appraiser that would look at the comps that you were talking about.
Right. He or she would look at the comps. Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Let me make sure nobody else on Zoom. Okay, go ahead.
Henry, so what you're saying is that if they go out for a combine for 400,000, in some cases they're going to tie up the land for
In a lot of cases, depending on the financial position, John, yes, we have used real estate, knowing that there could be a huge amount of lost capital. Now, if someone wants to come in and get a 3 or 4 or 5 year loan on a combine, possibly not. But if someone wants a 7 or a 10-year loan on a combine, yeah, I mean, there's people in this room that know machinery much better than me. The value is not going to be $400,000 in 10 years. Okay. Or I had people come in and want to pay interest only for a couple of years because there might have been some adversity in their business and they need a year or two before they can start paying principal. I've done that to allow the entity to continue an agricultural enterprise. That's our goal at Farm Credit East, is to work with the people in agriculture. Understand, John, does it make any sense?
Yep.
And a lot of times too, John, what we'll do is when we do a loan and we know that individual entity is going to come back and borrow from us in a couple of years, we'll take more collateral. We might write a loan for a short-term loan for $200,000, and the farm might be worth $600,000. We might write a mortgage for $300,000 or $400,000 because we have lines of credit mortgages where we can re-advance back on that line, on that mortgage, without going through closings and title work and recertifications and all that. So that's a position where the equity, the land owned by the entity or the individual, plays a very vital part in structuring not just the loan for this year, but it could be for 5 years or 10 years, or it could be in estate planning, as you're probably aware of in accounting. You could be based on the value, you could be doing an estate plan. We're looking for transfer of generations. So I think that issue is key. Make any sense, John?
Yeah, now I got it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
this time I'm gonna get a motion to open to the public, only to discuss the farm project or to have, address, Mr. Grimbon with questions, okay? Can I get a motion to open to the public, please?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll start over here. Do you want to address? No.
Oh, I would just say, I'm Leslie Stahl. I'm Leslie Stahl, and I would just say that, me and my.
Can you just state your address?
117 John Ringo Road.
Okay, good.
I would just say that me and my 3 siblings are 100% opposed to the downzoning for everything Henry just said and a whole bunch of other reasons.
Fine, thank you.
Well, I'm Tom Jang. I'm at 286 Grayville Road. We live in River Township. We farm, well, my son and I, we 500 acres. Be sure I stand against any kind of governmental intervention. This type. It's absurd, not well thought of. That's all.
Are the bond?
Well,
Can you just state your name and address,
okay,
Mr. Bond?
David Bond, 325 County Road, 579 Ringo. We went through this about 10 years ago, and it devalued our property somewhat. And at this point, all we want to do is be left alone. We've got lots of issues, and we don't need our equity stolen from us, which is what's gonna happen. Our equity will be outright stolen. And if you decide to put it in farmland preservation, your value is way down. So you won't want to put it in preservation because your value is not there. You can't value a farm on 10-acre zoning the same as 25-acre zoning. It don't take much of a magician to figure that out. And so we're definitely opposed to 25-acre zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Jeff, do you have anything?
I think I'm all right.
Okay. The gentleman next to Jeff?
Right.
Sorry, I didn't see you over there.
I'm good, and I've heard everything.
Okay, behind? Francis?
Francis Gadigan, 123 Woodsville Road, Ringgold. I've got a small property that once upon a time was conforming and now is not conforming. So the loss to me is a building lot 21 years ago when they put the 10 acres on it, which would have come in handy at the ripe old age of 68. But I have a couple of questions for you, Mr. Greenbaum. Sorry, I didn't try to.
That's fine. I'll make you
Okay.
one. I've been called worse people in this room, believe me. Everybody laughs. The ones that laugh the loudest are the ones that call me names.
Yeah, well, I've experienced that myself. Your farm credit ease. I can remember talking to you guys 20-some years ago. You said you're a cooperative. Are you a for-profit cooperative, or are you like the Grange that exists to help support agriculture and the farm while making?
We're cooperative, established 102 years ago, and we pay a very large percentage of our profits back to our customers as patronage dividends. People in this room have received in the past and continue to receive.
Okay.
And then we take the rest of that money and build our asset base to prepare ourselves for rural adversity, and also to allow ourselves to give people in agriculture exceptionally competitive interest rates.
That, I like that. The other question that I have for you is, this goes back to John's question of $1 million 10 lot versus 4 25-acre lots. In your experience, where there's been this downzoning, upzoning, whatever, has the value of a building lot, whether it was 25 or 10, retain the equity, or is it that, is a building lot sort of a,
Reduced,
it's reduced?
yes.
Okay, and would such a plan as this help young farmers get involved in agriculture? Because it sounds like it'd be really difficult to get the capital assessments and the backing to get off your feet as
Well,
a young farmer. If I were.
Yes and no. That's a very challenging question, I'll tell you. When a young farmer comes in, okay, it's not just the land base. To get involved in agriculture young, the average age of New Jersey farmer is 68 and a half years of age. Okay? There's a reason why. It's not because what's happening in East Animal either, believe me. It's called the economy. Okay? Because when an individual 25 or 30 goes to buy a tractor or a combine or a loader or a piece of equipment or a bulk tank for a milk farm, they don't ask their age. It's what the fair market brings in. So it's a very capital intensive, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's changed from a lifestyle to a business. It's exceptionally capital intensive type of business. You could get started when I was a kid with 50 or $100,000. Today, you can't even get down the street, down a driveway with that kind of money. Not even close. So it's a culmination of all of it, whereby a change here in down zoning, I don't think is going to bring an influx of young farmers into it because the value came down. It's about the general agricultural economic economy in New Jersey. Nationally, New Jersey and Hunterdon County. Okay, Hunterdon County, the county you live in, is one of the most affluent counties in the country. And so you're looking at exceptionally, look at what we're talking about with labor issues and $15 an hour. Okay, it's a challenge. And when these costs per hour for labor go up, who ultimately pays for that? Look in the mirror. We do.
Yes.
Okay? And then the issue with no one wanting to work. You go into Walmart, you walk into Walmart in Flemington, everybody else got boxes. Why? No one wants to work. But guess what? When you walk out of Walmart, it's a big sign. I saw it the other day. $18.75 an hour plus benefits. Day job. Nobody's banging on the door. Okay? It's a very unique economy we're in right now in society.
You spoke earlier about when somebody comes to get a $400,000 combine, and when you're setting them up, that they have to have appraisals, their income. Do you have any kind of a ballpark figure as to how much upfront money the farmer would have to expend to just get in the door and try to start an application?
It depends on, excuse me, apologize. It depends on the type of operation. Okay, and unfortunately, in today's economy, okay, you can't start out small. It's impossible. I mean, if I were to say you're going to survive on 200 acres of field corn, how? You joke. Correct. You just answered your own question.
Okay.
That's, I mean, greenhouses. Are you going to survive on an acre of greenhouse? No. You'll be in the poverty level. You'll be on welfare if you have 1 acre of greenhouse today, because it's so capital expensive. I was at a customer's this morning. Okay, he just spent $200,000 per machine. Got rid of 4 people for a machine to take cuttings off the table and put them into a flat, as opposed to seeing 4 women or 4 men sitting there and sticking cuttings. It's $280,000 machine. He's got 2 more of them in root. It's $600,000. I'm pretty sure. So it's very capital intensive today. The value comes down here. People are going to think, well, gee, value's going to come down. All these young farmers are going to come out of there. They're going to come out of the sky. There's a too much. It's not too capital intensive today. The equity is a huge part of the process. It's not 100%.
It sounds like it's a symbiotic relationship with agriculture, farmers, and the residents, the rural residents of East Amwell. You know, who do, and they do, get food to the table without us knowing how the sausage is made.
Okay, Lindsay or Kit?
Yeah.
Just state your name and address, Lindsay.
I just wanted to, what Henry said. So, being on a farm, I can say, Amwell has always been, let's help our farmers. We want to save the farmers. So I can tell you, there have been years in the past 10 years that are so wet that we cannot harvest our crops. And we have personally worked with farm credit, as I'm sure many other farmers in the town and town have, where if we didn't have the land we have in the land, we would have not had a loan to survive those years. And, I would consider my husband to be a pretty big farmer in the town. So it's critical that we have that value in the land. Otherwise, we would be belly up and there'd be one less farmer in the town.
George?
All I hear about is helping the farmer. All I hear is helping the farmer. We gotta help the farmer. Who is the farmer? I asked the farmer, are they helping you? They're not helping you. So we don't know who the farmer is. But, how is he helping the farmer? But everything's got you. There's a whole list of how we got to do it. Really, that is. And then, why is it helping? It's American? What is it? What do you know? It is what I know. Who is the farmer? Farmer is the mayor. How do we help the farmer? We evaluate the land around them. Helping farmland conservation. You heard about that. If you're in our township, you get 4 houses on an acre. It might be 20,000 acres. I was down in Berlin. It was high zoning, it was residential zoning. The farmer had 20,000 an acre. The residents were happy to take it. They wanted to see it. So, and now, why does he want to? Why does he want to? Probably, well, what is all that? I wonder. The mayor told me many times he's looking to acquire land, farmland, for his legacy. And that's his legacy, and he's going to have a farm school. Well, he has no kids. I'm going to donate everything to the 100 land. That's it. Do you have that question? Okay, well, let me go. Or do you have to go into the field? That's true. To me, this is a conflict of interest. There's farms around the mayor's farm, our farm, Shaw's farm, Purple's farm. None of that land is preserved. to acquire land at a deed value price. Downtown, so that's 25 acres. And you can buy more land. So, to me, there is a conflict of interest, no matter how you look at it.
And downstairs.
Well, I'm just saying, if you don't drop the 25 acres now, not a threat. Yeah, if you don't, if you're, there's one that, if you can barely own 100 land trusts, where the top is going. All right.
Right in the back. Mr. Mann?
All the big things you're gonna do for the funding, how they're gonna
say one thing and do another. I understand where it's coming from. You can't be both ways. This is financial ruin for a lot of farmers. You're picking up, you know, 500 a farm on farm, it's $1 million. You can lose property. Now, farmers, I do that little farm, the deer, and then you can do smaller parts of the deer festival, and each part the bigger doesn't. So if you break it up, then, you know, somebody may go install 2 or 3 houses, and things are going to put a bigger parcel. Therefore, that farm is larger, it still becomes still a viable land to farm. You keep breaking it up into small parcels, 25 acre lots, they get the point that the deer will be close and full in the market. And then you get the house, and the deer, breaking it up a little bit. Behind what you said, I want to understand more what the reason is to go through that. Doesn't make sense. And why it's just the farm.
Tim?
I do want to understand how the farm project is very attention to narrow show this new years and how that has connected to 25 acres. Again, why are those two things dependent on one another? I think the 25 acre zoning discussion completely derailed some great thinking about how we
This for Mrs. Hockenberry?
I had a crazy once you give the farmer a 3 acre lot that he can sell off, but he can only sell one lot every 5 years. And if this is the feasible or not, I have no idea. It's just the thought that comes to me. But so you sell one lot every 5 years, 20 years, and that's 4 houses, and it's a small lot. And you still got a lot of ground to buy. Now, this is my idea of what the solve the problem is. That's all I can tell you. I don't want to solve the problem really. But here, if you run Ringo's, you're going to put 24 houses, you know, drop people down, and that's all right. Not on each one of them, you gotta have 25 acres for you. Don't figure out where it's good to me. Hope I don't figure right. So this is what I'm just giving you a way out. I give you a small lot every 5 years for the farmer. So if you need the money, if you don't, you don't have to sell. So that's the way it is. That's the thing.
Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak? Jane Petrolino. State your name and address, please.
This is Bob Polino. I live at 224 Wurtzville Road. I've got a 40-acre farm that is one of the parcels that will be in question here. I've lived through 1.5 acre to 3 acre zoning change, a 3 acre to 10 acre zoning change, and now you want to make it 25 acres. You're literally stealing my ability to preserve this farm if you ever have the money to do so, and you're stealing from me my equity. I'm 80 years old, and I am dead set against this 25 acre zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Jess Stahl.
Yes, Jess Stahl, 117 John Ringo Road. Thank you, Henry, for coming and speaking to everyone and providing the information that I think that the planning board really needs to hear. And I really hope that it has sunk into everybody. I've been involved in a lot of these meetings. I've been listening in. The farm project, I think, has a lot of pros to it. I think if you guys can help the farmers reduce the deer population, if you can help them reduce the tax burden, if you can assist farmers with resources, those are great things. But stealing farmers' equity, that's not okay. That's, you know, going to 25 acre zoning isn't gonna keep agriculture alive in East Amwell. You aren't gonna get new farmers coming in here because most people aren't gonna have the equity. So, you know, and emergencies, just like Henry said, when emergencies hit, farmers need that equity. And in today's day and age with the climate change as it is, expect to see more emergencies as we have been seeing throughout the United States. So, you know, I don't know what you expect the 25 acre zoning is going to do, who these people are that are going to be able to move in and buy these 25 acre lots. But there's going to be farmers that are going to need to retire, and you know, this is their retirement. Like Henry said, a lot of you guys have your 401ks, farmers have their land. So please don't steal from them. And I really hope that you can take this 25 acre zoning off the plate and move forward with the positives for the farm project to really actually help the farmers of East Amwell Township. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm not seeing anybody.
Thank you very much for your Sure. I wanted to hear what everybody has to say on that. Sure. I jotted down some thoughts before tonight's meeting, and I want to share those thoughts. But before I do that, I just want to say, while I have a great deal of respect for George and his family, what he said about my intentions not being further from the truth. I'm not pursuing this for self-interest. In fact, if the downzoning happened, I suspect I would be impacted as much or more than anybody in the township, because I have a significant chunk of unpreserved land. I paid a very high price for it. And so to the extent there's an impact on value, I would be impacted. This is not pursuing my own self-interest. If anything, it's detrimental to my self-interest. If there's any doubt that I paid a high amount for the property, I spoke to Henry. He's familiar with it. He loaned me money against it. And he and his colleague Jason Hart told me I significantly overpaid for it. So I have skin in the game on this one. I'm not pursuing self-interests at all. It's hard for me to see how losing farmland to housing developments is good for farmers.
I just can't get my arms around that. Right now, farmers are cannibalizing each other for farmland. I have people on a regular basis trying to get me to give up my farmland to them, to remove the farmer who's currently farming my farmland and give it to them. You're all chasing farmland. So I had a very difficult time seeing how allowing housing developments on farmland helps farmers. Do I think this downzoning to 25 acres is going to significantly impact the value of land as a practical matter? No, I don't. And even Henry, when he was talking about 10 or 20%, that's not going to be a significant impact on what farmers can and cannot do. What concerned me about the concept of housing developments on our farms is not only losing the farmland, but you start to see this from a different perspective when you're the mayor and you're the one getting the phone calls from residents, or even from other farmers. When farmers want to put up farm structures, a barn, coop greenhouses, and residents who bought houses and have no clue what it means to live in a farm community start complaining, start filing lawsuits to try to stop it. That's not good for farming. My farm, which is now 139 acres, were it not for the downturn, would be 18 houses. The 83-acre parcel was approved for 11 houses, and the Gorduke parcel, which was 56 acres, was approved for 7. If it weren't for the housing downturn, those houses would have been built. In fact, the developer already started to drill wells. One of the parcels has 3 wells on it. If those houses had been built, particularly on the large parcel, they were on the south end of that parcel. In the summertime, that's the way the wind blows on my farm. Which means if farmers were spraying, that spray would be going towards those houses. If farmers were spreading manure, the smell would be going towards those houses. Fertilizer, dust. I hear all those complaints. Not only about people who live around my farm, but residents calling to complain about the area around the home. Gunshots for deer management. One of the largest number of complaints I get are about gunshots. People call me during the deer management. They're shooting guns too close to my house. So there's really nothing I can do about that. That's a state police matter, but I get those calls. So this rezoning, which was part of a much larger farm project, was coming from good intentions. I haven't heard anybody in any of these meetings refute any of the points that I've made. I haven't heard anybody say, well, this downzoning is going to take half the value off your property. Most of the properties that are significant in size are not owned by people who are farming. They're owned by people like me or people who don't even live in East Amwell. So to say that the downzoning is going to impact the farmers don't own this land. The farmers farm it, they don't own it. For the most part. Some do, most don't. If you look at the list of the target farms for preservation, most aren't owned by people who are farming. So I sit here and I say, how does allowing housing developments on farms that aren't being farmed by farmers, that aren't owned by farmers, how is that good for farmers? How is it good if the land in East Amwell starts disappearing, the housing developments, and it's not available for farming? How is that good for agriculture? How is that good for our farmers? I'm just not seeing that. So that's where this is coming from. I want to get that on the record so people don't think that this was just some scattershot approach. It wasn't. A lot of thought went into this. All that said, this isn't about what I want, Tim wants, John wants, Jackson, any of us up here. It's not about what the township committee wants. I tell people I'm 1 out of 4,000 voices in this community, and my voice carries no more weight than anybody else's. I truly believe that. I view my role as a public servant. I try to consume as much knowledge as I possibly can about East Amwell, its residents, what they're looking for, and then apply that in a way to make East Amwell a better place to live. That's how I view my role. I don't take a salary. I waive my salary. In fact, we passed an ordinance that prohibits township committee members going forward from ever getting a salary. We're not getting paid for this. I don't get paid for this. I have no aspirations beyond East Amwell Township. I'm not looking to run for governor someday. I just ran to try to make this community a better place to live. So in my capacity as a conduit for the desire of the residents, I'm sitting here. I took a lot of notes. I've been taking a lot of notes from other meetings that I've had with farmers. I've met with a number of you in this room, some of you for as much as 3 hours. And I've been listening to what people have said. In the end, this is the farmer's business. Whether I agree with the farmer's decision or not doesn't matter. As I said, I'm 1 out of 4,000 voices. This is your business. If the farmers are saying to us that they don't want the rezoning, then we shouldn't do the rezoning. I've articulated these points to each of the farmers that I've met with. And as I've said, I'm looking around, I've met with, I think, most of you in this room. Not all, but most. And I've listened very carefully. If the farmers don't want us to do this, even though I think that's the wrong choice, the wrong decision, it's not my decision, it's not Tim's decision, it's the community's decision. So my view at this point, having heard what I've heard since really last summer that we started talking to people, is my view is we ought to just drop the rezoning. That's not my decision to make. That'll be the decision of the planning board and the township committee. But to the extent that my 1/4,000 of a voice in East Amwell matters, I've heard what you said, and I think we ought to just drop it. If people have a different approach that they think would keep our land from being developed, housing developments, but is acceptable to the farmers, then we ought to pursue that. If the answer is leave things the way they are, then we'll leave things the way they are. If others in the community disagree with what I'm saying tonight, then they come forward and say, I disagree, and I feel we should move forward with the 25-acre rezoning. Have some people said that to me? Yes. But I put a lot of weight on the decision of the views of the farmers here. And I have to listen very carefully to what people can say. So I just want to make that point. I think we ought to just, my view is we ought to just drop this. And if others feel differently, you should feel free to chime in. That's all I have to say. Well, just please bear in mind, personally, I was coming at this from the perspective of trying to be helpful. I really was. I wasn't coming at this from the perspective of trying to hurt anybody. I really want to help the farmers. That was the goal here. If I got it wrong, my bad, but it's not from a lack of trying. It's not from a lack of trying to be helpful. That's all I have to say. I don't know if you want to reopen. I don't see a hand in the back. I don't know if you want to let anybody say anything else.
Can I get a motion to reopen to the public, please?
I'll move.
Second. All in favor?
Parents, I
propose to upzone the zone. You go from, you went to 10 to 25, and you got to 10. If you went to 5 acres, that way, if Mr. Hockenberry, he has no retirement, and if he's old enough, then he's too old to retire. If you upzoned it, 1980s reservation was at 10,000 acres. Today, it's probably at 10,000 acres. If you upzoned it, you would bring up the price of the value of the per acre, and you'd get more preservation. You would get a lot more preservation than the 10 acres. Sure. And you would maybe give the township the first refusal to buy out the development rate. So there will be house, there will be a house. None of the farmers here want houses, but they're stripping their you're taking the value out of it. And this way here, you preserve, you'd have no houses, you'd have more land. You won't have a house in the field, you have the field. George, did you ever hear the expression, don't snatch the thief from the fair hands of victory? That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Francis Gavigan, 123 Wordsville Road. For once, I can agree with the idea to drop the 25-acre zoning concept once and for all from this farm project. I live on Wordsville Road. The first property I think that was preserved was Cotton. And if you go down Wordsville Road, there are like 2 or 3 different little houses on an acre or so that were parceled off from the Cotton larger lot for their children and their families. So there's a whole little village of Cottons at that location. Leave it at 10-acre zoning. We've already gone through it. We do not want to create an attraction to the Toll Brothers or whatever. Leave it alone. We have not been under development pressure for 20 years, and that was part of the data you submitted, so that people can get back to getting their soil ready for a soggy spring. So can we please maybe poll the planning board or whatever and just, you know, do the Nero thumbs up, thumbs down on the whole concept, starting, you know, acting on your statement. That's it.
In many foreign countries, their zoning is maybe 5 or 10 acres or whatever, but they do cluster the houses in a very small tight area, only get like 1/4 acre or half an acre of the house. And then you keep all the farmland still viable with theirs. So the 10 acre zone got 100 acre farm, you put 10 houses on it. But you only use up 2 or 3 acres, and there's still 95 acres left to farm. People want, like in communities, keep the agriculture there. They don't have enough land to go around, so they value the food and they go to the raise crops. That's more valuable than what they buy. The farmers there have only 50 per farm, but they have the other. They do not want to use the other. The government doesn't want to use the other. So they keep their housing 35 years.
John, the goal here was to do that with the 25 acres. It was clustered in one area. You can't go to really a half acre lot in East Amwell. That's septic and back of septic. But you would go to 1.5 acres, for example. That's about at least you need to have the septic in the back of the field with some other room on the property. You would cluster it so that you have 6 acres plus you probably miss some spill off for stormwater, so maybe 7 acres taken up and 93 acres left to farm on a 100-acre parcel. That was what was envisioned with the 25 acres. But I hear what you're saying. No matter what zoning regime you have, the goal would be to have the houses clustered and preserve as much of the farmland as you can. But the concern is that, again, with the houses clustered or not, you have people who are going to buy these houses who have no clue what it means to live near a farm. And the first time you start doing things like spraying, fertilizing, etc., you're going to have people complaining, people filing lawsuits. We've had some of that in East Amwell. You're probably all aware of it. Farmers being tortured with lawsuits, one in particular, because a lawyer moved in next door and wasn't happy living next to a farm. One of the things we're contemplating is enacting an ordinance that bars lawyers from moving into East Amwell. Now, of course, any that are living here currently are grandfathered.
Thumbs up, everybody.
But no, look, I hear what you're saying. And look, to Francis's point, the message at least I got from the farmers and from these hearings goes beyond the rezoning. I mean, tonight people are focused on the rezoning, but I think there are a number of components of this farm plan that the farmers really have no interest in. And it's not clear to me that we ought to be spending time and resources pursuing those. Deer management, I think across the board with the farmers, they like us to work with them on some sort of deer management program. If I'm wrong on that, feel free to raise your hand and chime in, but focus efforts on that. The farm market, I'm not sure. I get mixed messages. Some farmers think it's a waste of time and we ought not be pursuing it. Other farmers have an entirely different view. I'm not sure that the farm market is really viable unless the majority of the farmers in the area want to participate. Otherwise, I'm not sure that it's really economically viable. Personally, I'm not thrilled with agritourism. I don't, maybe on a very limited extent, but I don't think we want to have a different. Well, I'm just commenting on different forms of. I mean, to some extent, agritourism can become almost a different form of development. Meaning you're attracting, a lot of people coming into East Amwell when we're already having issues with traffic on our roads and other problems. So I'm not saying I can't be convinced otherwise, but I'm not wildly thrilled about having a vast amount of agritourism in the township. So I think the farm project was a useful endeavor in that it got people talking and it got us input. And the message I walk away with is that by and large, farmers want to be left alone, do what they're doing. And they don't want us sticking our nose into their business. Dave Bond just gave me a thumbs up. By the way, I probably give the most weight to what I hear from Dave. And Dave knows that. I've had a lot of conversations with Dave since we moved here, and his family's been very good to Kathy and to me since the day we moved to East Amwell.
Really got the message. Leave us alone.
You know,
Dave, how many farmers came to you and said, "Oh, we need help. Oh, let the township help us." I don't think too many did that. So I hope we understand. Leave us alone. Period.
You know, Dave, you're young and you move like a hare. You move
I'm
fast.
young, yeah, right.
I'm old. I move a lot slower. It takes me a while to catch up. And I get there ultimately. It just takes longer. But look, I would still like to keep the communication going. I'd still like to get the input because we really do want to keep agriculture viable in East Amwell. We want to keep the township an agricultural community. The residents want that. And so in order to do that, we need input from the farmers, and to the extent that we can be helpful, we want to do that. If you don't want us to stick our nose in, That's fine too. We're happy to help.
I want to interject.
We're still open up to the
Oh, sorry.
public, so, if there's not anybody else from the public, go ahead.
But John could speak as a member of the public.
Would like to make a comment about one farmer. Who goes along with what they farm? I can tell the township how to do it. With how I do it, I put my son to it, how I observed it done in the past. And yes, we go along. It's the individuals who have helped me the most. Not individuals who have helped me, and I intend to help my sons or neighbor kids or whoever needs it as I'm doing. That's how you do it. Help the people who are in it now. Get the burden of any regulations you can off of their backs. Because I'll tell you what, you don't have 5 minutes in a day to think about something else. So don't throw anything at all. And recognize the burden. Recognize the neighbor that's complaining. Say, hey, if this was an airport, you wouldn't move next to it and then complain about the plane, would you? And it's telling you that this township doesn't have something in writing. So when someone buys a property, they acknowledge you're living next to a farm.
We do.
I thought you had.
We do.
I'm sorry.
We do.
But they don't pay any attention.
Well, then I'm afraid it's a burden for the mayor to roll off the shoulders.
Well, look,
Sorry.
I do. I mean, there's nothing I can do. You bought a house in a farm community, what do you think?
Well, I disagree. I agree with, he was stealing my thunder on a lot of stuff. But the one thing that we should do is we should have, when a new resident comes in and purchases a home, and they get their first tax bill, the Right to Farm Act.
They get the Right to Farm Act mailed to them,
Okay,
so they do get it, so.
well,
This goes in deeds too.
I understand. But maybe we should have a response back that they understand.
But they don't. The problem is they don't.
If you want to staff that, feel free to come in and
I'll
staff
John,
that.
the problem is, John, they don't really understand.
I understand. Well,
Until
don't
you
have to tell
actually,
them.
what they've seen is they've seen the TV shows. They've seen Lassie.
Right.
They're thinking about the collie running through the field.
Well, all right, so
It's just like people.
It's already being done.
Rick's right.
We're already doing
Let
it.
me tell you, it looks romantic on TV sitting on a tractor. I sat on a tractor for 8 hours. The one I bought from Scott Bond, well, I don't know, Scott Bond. It's not easy. And I don't do it for a living. I do it to relax on weekends. I wouldn't want to do it day in and day out. But these people don't realize that when they move to Easttown. Well, they have this romantic view of what it's like to live in an agricultural community. And the moment they get a whiff of cow manure, they're freaking out.
All right, well, that's something, I gotta interject this before this gets on the floor. The one thing I think the farmers need, as Mr. Zhang said, and what I've been doing in my tax return, is I'm finding out that the New Jersey State Department of Health is rampant in this county right now, going to farms. I do a dairy farm tax return, and they came in last week and they told me the state of New Jersey came in and told them they no longer can sell pet milk and potentially not their cheese products or dairy products. We are the only state in the nation that does not allow raw milk to be sold. We are also the only state in the nation that treats our farmers like crap. And I think if anything with this farm project that should be done is to work with the farmers to get ideas for what their issues have been with the state of New Jersey and us attacking the state of New Jersey, not the state of New Jersey attacking us and helping the farmers that way. I am passionate about this. I'm tired of it. They come into this community and they come into the farmers and they put so much regulation on them, making them spend all this money on different things like beer management and all this other crap that the state of New Jersey doesn't understand. And I firmly believe that the Farm Bureau doesn't understand because I don't feel that they do a proper job for them either. And I think it's time that our agricultural committee work with the planning board and the farm project to work on those issues, not on the issues of the 25 acres, not on the issues of putting up a fruit stand in the town when we have Sweet Valley and another produce guy up the road. I think that is where our attention should be, and to help them that way. They need help from the local officials here with the state of New Jersey to make them understand what the hell they're going. And I think that's what our project should be. That's just my opinion.
Well, I agree with you, and I'm not sure you're gonna get very far with the current administration and at the current time, but things are going to change next year, hopefully, and or later this year. And I was actually talking to one of the farmers last week about this. Figure out some things we want to get done, get everybody in their tractors, get a whole line of tractors, go down to Trenton, and you'll get some press attention. Right, but you may have a much more sympathetic governor by next year. Wait, anybody else from the public?
Yeah, Francis Gavigan, but still 123 Woodville Road. There is some good that came out of these 2 months of painful discussions, in that at the end of January, Darcy Mays created the East Amwell Farmers Facebook page and has been putting up very helpful and useful information for people as recently as yesterday about how the ag department is rolling out the vaccine for those who want it for their farm workers and themselves. So the one thing that did come out of all of this is the farmers work together, they take care of themselves, they want help, but they don't want to have directions, and keep up the good work, Darcy.
I will close the vote.
Like I said, second, all in favor? Aye. Again, thank you very much for your time and your information. I really appreciate it.
All right, so I just want to continue on my rant. Okay.
Henry, you don't want to miss his rant. Don't leave.
I'll stay in the back.
Again, like I said, I really believe that that's something we should focus on. The farmers through Darcy's website should put their issues that they've had with the state of New Jersey, put them down. Let the Township Committee and let the planning board see what, and the agricultural committee, see what those issues are. And start working with, against the state of New Jersey of what they're doing. And yes, it's the administration. Yes, he doesn't give us 8 to 100 county good Republican county. I'll put that all out there. But unless you are a squeaky wheel, you don't get the grease. And I think it's a time to start. And if you're right, Rick, and I hope you're right, that he loses in November, then we will have started the process of what their farmers' real issues are. And then we can go to the new Governor Citarelli and tell him, this is the issues. Really, take the noose away from their neck, let them farm. Let the New Jersey be the garden state. That is my opinion what we should do.
Well, Jeff is on the road. He understands what's going on around here. So let's hope for the best in November.
We're not the board to talk politics or parties, so just keep that in mind as well, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. Everybody out in the audience, like the courtroom, anything I just said about politics, just disregard it.
Okay,
I think we're going to move on to the bylaws, planning board. Can I get a motion to approve the bylaws?
Oh,
wait, hang on.
You get a motion, we can discuss after we make a motion.
I get a second. Any questions or discussion?
Well, I gave Pam a bunch of comments to the bylaws, the last draft. She sent me back an email with some responses, but I haven't had a chance to get back to her on the responses. So I think there are some things that need to be fixed in the bylaws. That's my own. So unless there's a compelling reason to finalize them tonight, I'd like to defer them until the the next meeting, so we can have some time to work out some of the issues.
Tim,
Go ahead, Pam.
there's no pressing need to do this tonight. We can do it in April, but we left the farm issue without addressing Elena's proposal.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
No, it went off track, so.
Yeah.
But why don't we go through the bylaws, resolve that, and come back to it?
Well, do we want to go through the bylaws or put it off till April?
We'll have to.
I thought you're,
Till April.
Let's table it until April's meeting, please. Is that good with everybody? Okay.
Is everybody in agreement to defer till April?
and by the way, after talking with Tim, I asked Yolanta to review them as well. So she's been doing that.
Okay, has everybody had time to look over the proposal? HGA?
Yes. You know, the medical was discussed tonight. You think that proposal has to stay? So I'm not sure that there's a lot of discussion based on the current proposal unless the planning board plans on moving forward with the rezoning, assuming we're looking to table that. And I think this proposal needs to stay.
There's a lot more in this proposal than just the rezoning. There was a whole lot more to the farm project than just the zoning. And part of the problem with this meeting has been, I think half the board hasn't been able to speak. So that you know, my mic happens to be unmuted at the moment. So I just wanted to say that. But you know, we talked about a lot of things with the farm project, including complementary zoning, you know, looking at Ringo's, looking at the highway. Even if we don't do 25-acre zoning in the AVAD, I think there are probably ways we can make that zone more effective. I understand we've heard from a lot of farmers here, but there are other groups within town, and we had talked about having more meetings, and all of that is included in this proposal. So if we truly want to make things better for farmers, I do think it is worthwhile going ahead with this proposal. The planning board hasn't done the homework yet. And this proposal outlines the way to do that. So my opinion is I would be in favor of moving ahead, but like Rick, I'm just one opinion.
This is a lot of money for us to be spending. And in light of the discussion tonight, I think we have to revisit the proposal and see what we want to pursue and what we don't want to pursue. Because I'm not sure really what's left of the farm project, quite honestly. And I'm not even sure what's left of the rezoning. I agree that you do need to take a look at the village and perhaps make some changes, but that's just a portion of this much larger project. So what I'd like to do is table Elena's proposal. Let's revisit it. I think it has to be revised to reflect what was discussed tonight, and then I think we'll be in a better position to discuss it next month.
Is there a way to break it down in categories?
I don't think what was discussed tonight affects her proposal. I mean, this is not a proposal to come up with a, planning report to analyze 25-acre zoning. It's a proposal to come up with, a master plan that reflects the vision of the farm project. So the 25-acre zoning was just one piece of it. There's a lot of things we could do with the AVAD zone. So.
Marnie has a question. Hey, Marnie.
I just wanted to say if there's a way for the people on the dais to somehow speak closer to a microphone, or I know it's hard to hear the people in the room, but I can actually barely hear the people on the dais too.
Okay, I mean, I can't because I have a laptop.
Well, I can hear you, Rick. You're not the one I'm having trouble with.
It's because everything is geared to my computer as the microphone. So that's what the issue is. It's just the text technology we have.
Look, I would, since it's not urgent to get this proposed tonight, I'd like to revisit it, particularly given the budgetary constraints that we're facing this year.
What's everybody's opinion, other
Yeah.
thoughts? We know Cam's thoughts. Marnie, what is your thought? To table it or to what, or do you want to pass it?
I mean, my only concern is I think it's hard to have it. I can hear Zoom, but I can't really hear that much that's going on in the room. I don't know if I'm the only one having that problem.
You're not the only one.
Okay. So I would like to talk about tonight, but I'm afraid I'm not going to hear what people are saying. So
Well, just like this, people can seem to hear me. The question on the table is, do we want to approve the proposal tonight or do we want to defer it until April? My own view is we ought to defer it until April and revisit in light of what we discussed tonight.
Get a consensus. But obviously they can't hear me.
They can hear you.
Really?
So I'm trying to get a consensus of who wants to defer it and who wants to go ahead with it.
Elena hasn't even described it, what her proposal is. So you ask people, do they want to go ahead with it? I'm not sure they know what they're going ahead with.
Everybody should have had a chance to review it. But if you want her to review it with all of us, then go ahead.
I don't think, that's just my opinion.
I don't think it's necessary.
I'm getting a majority here that they don't feel it's necessary.
And that is because of the budget.
Right, and we can decide to move
And
forward
it's
with
really
it. I
the
don't know
chair,
if the money will
the
be
chair
there.
is Tim. So Tim, please.
Can we get everybody's opinion on there? And it's just not working at all. I mean, as far as, are we gonna move ahead with it tonight? Or are we
Well,
gonna take it?
they're not answering, so
They're not answering.
they're just listening to one person.
Natalie, can you hear me? Can you take yourself off mute, please? You're on mute.
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, Natalie, do you want to vote on the proposal this evening? Do you want to discuss the proposal or do you want to defer it until April? So we can.
I would like if we can defer it, but because it's really hard for me to hear. So I think it'll be better if we can defer it to April.
Mike, what do you think?
I agree. I'm having a lot of trouble hearing anything as well.
Jason?
I'd like to defer it. Yeah.
Jim?
Yeah, let's defer this till next month. Tamara, you and I will have a conversation tomorrow about this, please.
Okay.
In the loop to some degree, because this is like very. Sure. Okay, so we're gonna table that. Okay, that's tabled for next month. There is no new business. Items for discussion. Update from marijuana subcommittee. I guess I got to Joseph be the leader of that. So the marijuana subcommittee has done research. We talked about last month. That's the weekend stuff. Lawyer, so I don't know if that's is verbatim, but the committee's in favor of going forward with proposing to the planning board of allowing one micro dispensary and one warehouse. Obviously, people want to move forward with it. We would need to figure out where we're going to locate this, what zones they're going to be located in. But I think we have room on the highway, either 202 or Route 31. I don't think putting anything in the village is going to be a good idea. First, one, it's close to the school. Two, the traffic. It's, Ringo's Village already has traffic issues. We don't need to add some by people coming to buy their marijuana. But I do think that it should, I want the board to move forward with, discussing this and
You're welcome, Candace. But that's the voice from the marijuana subcommittee, is that we would like to proceed with the thought of one micro dispensary and one warehouse. And just to put some numbers to that, not numbers, but like we talked about before, the micro dispensary is 2%. The township would collect, a warehouse would collect 1%. So we would be making money from a warehouse, which would be storing and just distributing, probably tons of pot every month, which their 1% might add up to be more than the 2% off the dispensary. So, like I said, and I don't think a warehouse is going to be a big imposition. I don't think this stuff's going to be coming in, huge tractor trailers, but it's probably going to come in a armored car more or less. But yeah, that's the committee's recommendation.
From the perspective of the township committee, or at least from my perspective on the township committee, at least one or more of the surrounding municipalities are going to do it, and they're probably going to locate it on 202 or 31. So whatever traffic there's going to be with respect to a marijuana dispensary or a warehouse, it's going to be there. It's going to be coming through East Amwell anyway. Do I think it'll add a huge amount to the traffic that's coming down 202? No, I don't. So the question is, in my view, we have two choices. One, let the other municipalities do it. We have the traffic and they get the money. Or two, we do it and we get the money. To me, this is not a particularly complicated issue. That's my 2 cents for it.
Well, I being a number guy, did a calculation of them, and I will estimate a low of 200,000 and up to 300,000 going to the property will be sound.
Well, just so you understand what that means, if you look at the tax revenue that we generate, that's going to be about 14 or 15% of the tax revenue that we generate. We generate those kinds of dollars. So there's a lot we could do. If I woke up tomorrow and all of a sudden had that money in the budget, there's a lot we could do, both in terms of cutting taxes and dealing with some of the issues in the township that we can't afford to deal with right now, which Jason knows better than anybody, because they mainly revolve around our infrastructure, not just our roads. We have significant infrastructure issues in this township. Our infrastructure has been left to basically go to pot for 30 years, and now the chickens have come home to roost. Oh, right. And we need to do something. So, look, I am very supportive of Tim's and the subcommittee's conclusion. Obviously, I'm just one member on the township committee. There are 4 others. Mark is on tonight, so if Mark wants to weigh in, he may want to share his views on this. Do you have anything you want to add, Mark?
No, I'm very much for it. The revenue is always a welcome if it does work out. But, we obviously have to do more research on it. But I think you're right. If we don't do it, the surrounding townships will. And we know that they're already looking at it because the clock's ticking.
There's a date of
August.
Well, if we do nothing, we have to abide by the state's rules. That means anything. That means that they can have a smoking lounge behind the place. They can, as long as it's out of sight of the public. So I think we need to, if people aren't in favor of it, we need to come out and say we don't want any of it. Because they did say that even the towns and municipalities that already passed ordinances, they're all null and void now. Since he signed the paperwork, he null and voided all those ordinances, so they all have to go back and readdress their ordinance issues with marijuana. So,
look, we have a 180-day deadline to either default to the state's rule, in which case it's basically a free-for-all in this town, or an FRO rules. in theory, we could enact a rule that bars all of this and then amend it later, I suppose, to allow some of it. But that to me isn't optimal because while we're playing around with this, other municipalities are going to get the business.
Chris has a question.
I'd rather be a leader.
Oh, no.
I'd rather be a leader than a follower here. So I think if we're going to do something, we ought to do it sooner rather than later so that the other surrounding municipalities don't beat us to the punch.
Well, Chris will get to use a member, but
Wait till we're open. to the
can you
public.
wait till we're open to the public, Chris?
Yeah, I'll wait.
Thanks.
Wait, that's what I wanted to do.
It's the microphone.
There we go. Okay, so anything else we need to discuss? I mean, does anybody on the Zoom want to weigh in on this? Barney, Mike, Natalie?
I agree with what, this is Tamara. I agree with what the committee came up with. I think we ought to look into it.
One question. Why was 179 right down by the county fair place?
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. I mean, 202, you know, we're commercial.
Well,
That's something we gotta look at.
The subcommittee, we actually go down 31, actually by Orlando's all the way down there. The spot, because both of us kind of said no. So we're at that little intersection, we got people.
Plus, you have the barn right near there, and you have Orlando's and Madalina's, so people get the munchies. We help local businesses.
They can't be
I'm
small.
open.
Okay, so, plan on moving forward with that? Okay, on to oral reports. Mike?
We have no new business for Fospec aside from an administrative change.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Barney?
I think Mike was still talking. He muted himself.
There we go. Yeah. So the only thing is an administrative change. I think her name is pronounced Tiana. Tiana Blakely will now be the secretary for the committee. So look forward to working with her.
Great, thanks, Mike. I'm sorry, now Barney.
We had a very short meeting. Our chairman resigned and that was it.
Okay.
That was the environmental / green team.
All right.
Yeah.
On the vouchers, can I get a motion to approve the bills of the evening? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to open to the public? All in favor? Aye.
Okay, Chris.
Chris?
No.
Well, that wasn't a warm welcome. I don't know who said no, but how's it going, guys? Real quick, a couple things. While we're still freshly on the topic, I'm fully supportive of what the marijuana subcommittee's come back with, and yeah, I hope we should move. I think we should move forward with this as soon as possible to get the green in both senses of the word, if you know where I'm coming from. But beyond that, I just want to thank all the residents who've come out and offered feedback and comment on the farm project. And to the mayor, I'd want to say I'm glad you've reconsidered your position, and I'm sure we'll have a much more deep discussion about this tomorrow night. But yeah, I look forward to working with everybody on all the stuff that's going on. So keep it brief. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Anybody else? Just unmute yourself and state your name and address. All right.
Anybody else?
Nope.
I'll move it closed. Second. All in favor?
Uh,
Correspondence. Patty's Place, no interest. Everybody got to look at that. I guess that just allows them to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
With their stuff. Yeah. And the stuff that just came out today with the new power lines, we're going to be having new power lines.
Yep.
Nothing we're going to do that. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No way to put the power on? I just put it down. How are we doing?
Thanks, everybody. We'll work on the technology.
That stuff's going to Philly. PSC&G. PSC&G.